The story begins by showing London in the early days of American independence, and at that time there were many babies born with extraordinary powers. Therefore, the government used them to build the city to be more advanced. Then, the government called these people the Powers, but when technology became more sophisticated, the government replaced their jobs with robots. At the same time, there is a criminal syndicate called the Trust that creates a new type of drug. They call it the Psych. Uniquely, the drug is made from the spinal cord of the Powers. However, the government didn't just silent. They then passed a law requiring the Powers to register their powers at the government office. In addition, the police also created a protective robot to subdue all members of the Trust. And of course, this robot is also used to keep an eye on the Powers so they don't abuse their powers. Decades later, we are introduced to a power named Connor Reed, who has the power of electricity. But lately, he has been busy taking care of his mother, who is suffering from brain cancer. Just like him, the mother is also a power and masters the power of ice. But unfortunately, that power only makes her disease worse. After eating with his mother, Connor applied for a job at a company so he could pay for his mother's treatment and medicine. But he had a problem because the fees were so high and need amount of money. While waiting for the results of his application, Connor worked as a construction worker. And as a power, of course, he uses his strength to make the job easier. Then not long ago, a police drone passed over his workplace. The drone detected that there were 3 powers who were also working at that place. The police ordered all the workers to come out. Then they activated the facial recognition device, and it didn't take long for the sophisticated drone to detect that there was one power that hadn't registered its power. As a result, the police immediately secured the worker, so as not to endanger others. But when he wanted to be put in a police car, he suddenly used his power to escape. And then he terminated by the police drone. At the same time, 2 policemen named Park and Davis were leading a raid on the drug headquarters. They then found the powers who were held in a room, and it seems that they are used as the main ingredient for making psych. Later that evening, Connor picks up his mother, who works at the supermarket. But when he got there, he was very angry because his mother was being scolded by her boss. It turned out that his mother had just broken something, until finally her boss kicked them both out. On the way home, Connor asked his mother to focus on resting at home, because in the near future the mother will undergo chemotherapy. But the mother refused because she had to work, so she wouldn't starve to death. The next day, Connor and the other power waited for a car pickup for a side job. But unfortunately, because of yesterday's case, no one wants to give him job anymore. After waiting for a long time, a car came to the location. And it turns out they are a gang of robbers who work under the organization, the Trust. Here, they come to look for a power that has the power of electricity. Without thinking, Connor accepted their job offer. Here, it is also revealed that Connor is a Class 2 electric controller. Even so, Connor still wants to accept the job, until finally he was allowed to come along. In the evening, they arrive at a government-owned chemical laboratory. In this place, they plan to steal a vat of hydrogen to make psych, and this robbery mission will be led by a gangster named Garrett. Then, without further ado, he immediately told Connor to break into the gate with his electricity. Seeing that, everyone there was amazed by his strength, even though Connor hasn't fully mastered that power. When the gate was open, Garrett's men named Maddie immediately burned the gate chain with the power of the fire. Then they transported the hydrogen vats before the security guards arrived. But unfortunately, they were caught by an officer. Not just silent, Garrett instructed his subordinate named Freedy to use his telekinesis. The officer was scared and promised not to report the robbery, but Garrett didn't believe it and immediately locked him in a trash can. At the same time, a drone was watching the robbery area. Therefore, Garrett also pulled the car over and removed their car sticker to trick the sophisticated object. Not long after, they went to a place. And the plan is that Garrett wants to introduce Connor to his boss named Marcus. It turns out that Marcus is a member of the Trust who masterminded the making of the psych. But on the other hand, Marcus is meeting with Wesley, who is none other than the supreme leader of the Trust. In this place, Wesley was seen collecting debts on Marcus. Marcus also asked for leniency, because his psych manufacturing site had just been raided by the police. As a result, Marcus suffered many losses. However, Wesley didn't care and demanded him to pay within a week. When Wesley left, Garrett came to introduce Connor to Marcus. After that, Marcus told his girlfriend, named Nia, to take Connor around the bar. While they were both gone, Marcus was planning something big and he needed Connor's role. Hearing that, Garrett also asked his boss to be patient, because Connor was still in Class 2, so he had to train him first to become stronger. Connor, on the other hand, was talking to Nia, and here it was revealed that the woman was a power with healing powers. When the night is late, Garrett takes Connor home. Then before parting, Garrett asked him to come again, because there was a new job that could make a lot of profit. Afterward, Connor went home to rest. While he was counting the money from Garrett, his mother looked proud. She thought that the money was the result of a good jobs. The next day, Park and Davis arrived at the robbery scene and they were confused. How to catch the perpetrators, especially since there are no CCTV cameras in the building. But clearly, Park believes that this robbery must be related to the psych makers. On the other hand, Connor is waiting for Garrett at the pickup point. Before starting the action, Garrett invites him to have breakfast first with Maddie and Freedy. In the cafe, Connor told him that he needed a lot of money to pay for his mother's treatment. Hearing this, Garrett finally trained Connor to maximize his abilities. One night, Connor came home with the money from his work with Garrett and his friend, and again his mother was happy because her son was as successful as a good worker. But unbeknownst, Park and Davis were watching from afar. Apparently, these two policemen have put his name on the list of suspects in the hydrogen vat robbery case. The next day, Connor and Garrett went to a bank. They both then watched the place before committing the robbery. As the sun set, Garrett and his friend began to carry out the action, and because the results of the monitoring earlier in the day, they were able to find the money vault easily. Unfortunately, the $500,000 they were after was no longer in the safe room. They only found $50,000. They had to take the money instead of getting nothing at all. When they exited the back door, a drone was waiting for the four of them. And without thinking, Connor immediately mobilized his power. Before being caught by the police, they immediately went to Marcus headquarters. There, Garrett argued with his boss over the meager loot. Of course, Marcus was also very fed up, because with that money, Marcus couldn't pay off his debt to Wesley. While they were arguing, Wesley's men came to the place, then suddenly attacked Marcus, Garrett, and Connor. But not long after, Marcus' right-hand man named Reno appeared there, and he is a power that has bulletproof strength. As a result, the fight was epic. Because of Wesley's men, Connor got a wound on his right hand. Seeing that, Nia immediately held his hand and healed the wound with her power. Connor was surprised because it was the first time he felt Nia's power. The woman said that she was forced to live with Marcus in order to pay off her father's debt. But there was something she couldn't tell Connor. The point is, when she heals people's illnesses, they will transfer to her body. After returning from Marcus' headquarters, his mother was waiting for him at the dinner table. In a high tone, she then asked where Connor got so much money from. Because after thinking about it, just an ordinary construction worker couldn't possibly get paid that much. Finally, Connor was honest that he joined Garrett and his group. Hearing his confession, his mother was so shocked that she fainted. Luckily, his mother was taken to the hospital. But the doctor told him that her mother's condition was getting worse and the cancer had disrupted her brain function. So inevitably, he had to immediately doing surgery to save her. After taking care of his mother's administrative costs, Connor is visited by Park and Davis. Apparently, they came to arrest him. In the interrogation room, Connor said that they had the wrong person. Also, he pretended not to know about the hydrogen vat and bank robberies, and of course he also doesn't want to be associated with Marcus. As a result, Park decided to let him go, because there was no clear evidence. However, Davis looks upset with the decision and thinks Connor has a relationship with members of the trust. After he left the police station, Garrett picked him up at the curb. He seemed worried that Connor would tell everything to the police, but Connor assured him that he didn't open his mouth during the interrogation. Later, he asked Garrett to drive him to Marcus' place, because he has a new job idea. Upon arrival at Marcus' place, Connor immediately conveyed his idea, which was none other than robbing the psych who had been arrested by the police, and if successful, then they can make $10 million. However, Connor gave Marcus a condition. The point is, he told Marcus to release Nia. After that, he will ask the woman for help to cure his mother's illness. Hearing these conditions, Marcus immediately agreed without hesitation. On the other hand, Garrett also submitted a condition, where he wants to cut affiliation with Marcus' organization. Not only that, he also wants to get 50% of the loot. Once everyone had agreed, Garrett called Maddie and Frady to strategize the robbery. Long story short, the day of the robbery finally come, and everyone immediately prepared in their respective positions. Then not long after, they started blocking the road so that no vehicles could pass there. In addition, they also hid the truck in a safe place so that it wouldn't be monitored by drones. Soon, the police truck arrived at the blocked road, and when they called for the protective robots, Connor appeared from behind and grabbed all the robots. After that, Garrett and the others rushed to the robbery site, and they immediately took the psych from the police truck before the other drones arrived. Unfortunately, Rhino betrayed them and took away all the psych. Rhino then tried to escape after killing Mehdi, but at the same time, the police sent another drone to stop the robbers. Fortunately, Connor and the others tried to escape. After a long run, Frady, who was badly injured, finally died. With that, Garrett has been left for dead by his two men. Meanwhile, Connor was furious with him. He felt that Marcus had betrayed him because Garrett wanted to leave the organization and asked for a 50% share. As a result, Connor decided to leave the gangster. On the other hand, Park and Davis are holding a meeting to discuss the robbery. During this meeting, the police commander seemed disappointed that Park had released Connor. In fact, he was clearly involved in the robbery. Park also said that he was just a pawn, not the main mastermind, but the commander didn't care. What's important is that the police arrest Connor as soon as possible. At the same time, Connor is treating his mother in the hospital, and it seemed like her illness was getting worse. Here, the mother advises her son to stop doing illegal work. In addition, she also persuaded Connor to let her die. After completing business at the police station, Park picks up his daughter at his ex-wife's house. It turns out that his only daughter is a power, and therefore he is quite sympathetic to the plight of the other powers. When Park was walking in the park, suddenly there was one of Connor's friends who gave him a paper and then left him. Apparently, the paper he received contained Connor's request to meet. In that place, Connor expressed all his regrets, as well as telling Marcus the hiding location. The next day, Park brought the information to the police station, and without wasting time, the police immediately raided Marcus' headquarters. When Marcus panicked and then told Rhino to protect him, but when he wanted to get into the car, his steps suddenly stopped because he heard his name being called. It turned out that the person was Garrett, who wanted to avenge his men. As a result, Marcus was shot in a vital part, and as his right hand, Rhino counterattacked brutally. Although Connor came to his aid, Rhino was very strong. Even he was able to withstand his electric attack. Not wanting to lose any more men, Garrett then attacked Rhino from behind, and the killings continued, until finally Connor and Garrett could kill him. Garrett then walked towards Marcus, then with his strength, he immediately finished Marcus off without mercy. After Marcus' death, Connor took Nia to the hospital, and he promised to release her if this healing woman was able to treat and cure her mother. However, Connor is a little hesitant when he finds out Nia's secret. The point is, Connor doesn't want to endanger Nia's life if she absorbs his mother's illness. On the other hand, Garrett says that his goal is to cure his mother, and this is the only way to use Nia's powers. Arriving at the hospital, Nia touches Connor's mother's body and activates her powers. Then, slowly, the disease begins to transfer to her body. Unable to bear it, Connor immediately stopped Nia and decided to let his mother go. Before breathing her last, her mother called Connor's name while holding his hand. Later that evening, Connor intends to turn himself in to the police, but before going there, he apologized to Nia for forcing her to cure her mother. A few days later, many things happened after Marcus' death, and one of them was the citizens who demonstrated so that the government arrested all the power that still existed. On the other hand, Park received an award for his actions that successfully investigated drug cases. Meanwhile, Garrett handed over the robbed Psych to Wesley, and from now on, he will take over Marcus' drug business. Elsewhere, Connor visits his mother's grave before deciding to run out of town. Initially, he really wanted to turn himself in, but he still didn't trust the police 100%. At the end of the story, Nia visits her father in prison and tells him that she has escaped from Marcus' trap. With this scene, the movie ended. In part 2, the story begins by continuing the story of Connor, a man who has just been released from prison, because in the first story he had committed a robbery to cure his mother's illness, but the mother wasn't saved. On his way home, he was approached by his old friend named Garrett. This man is a gangster boss who 5 years ago tricked Connor into becoming a robber, thus putting him in prison. Meanwhile, he is free until now, and he wants to help Connor not to live as a homeless person. However, Connor refuses, because he wants to live a quiet life with his work. 6 months later, we are introduced to siblings named Tarak and Pavani. Just like Connor, they also have extraordinary powers that are considered dangerous by normal people. After his parents died, Tarak had to work hard to pay for Pavani's education. In addition, he is also forced to work for Garrett as a delivery courier for Psych, which is a new type of drug made from the spinal cord of the power. At dinner, Pavani complained that his teacher required every student to buy a lot of books. Tarak asked his younger sister not to worry, because he would find more money to buy the books. The next morning, Garrett ordered his men to gather the couriers. Afterward, the Psych dealers gathered and reported their sales. Here, Tarak approached his boss and showed him his camouflage powers. He did all this to get promoted and earn more money. Unfortunately, he was slammed by Garrett's men. Not far from Garrett's headquarters, a policeman named Kingstone was showing off the prowess of the police's robot dog. He then said that this new technology was far more sophisticated and powerful than the previous robot, and to prove it, Kingstone calls one of the policemen and tests the robot's abilities. Kingstone then explained that this robot dog wouldn't attack people without cause, and if you want to survive from the attack, then the citizens only need to raise their hands. In the crowd of people, Pavani was also interested in seeing the greatness of the new robot, but for some reason, she had a bad feeling when she witnessed the action of the robot dog. In the evening, Garrett ordered his men to deliver the bribe money to Kingstone, and it turns out that the good-looking cop is actually a corrupt cop. So, all this time he has been receiving bribes from Garrett. Then in return, the police will provide protection to his illegal business. On the other hand, Tarak was hiding next to a trash can and saw the handover. Afterward, he followed Garrett's car secretly and planned to steal the bribe money. Arriving at the designated spot, the gangsters put the bag of money in a garbage can. When they left, Tarak rushed to get the bag and then hid using his camouflage technique. And of course, Kingstone was furious. He immediately instructed his men to find the person who stole their bag. Not only that, they also controlled a robot dog to chase him. Suddenly, Tarak ran until he found an empty warehouse and hid there. At first, he felt safe, but the robot dog could get in through the back door. Knowing this, Tarak rushed to escape, but he accidentally stepped on something, and eventually the dog started tracking him. Although he could get out of the building, the robot was too sophisticated to be tricked, and unfortunately, he was already pressed and couldn't escape. Therefore, he immediately raised his hand to avoid being attacked by the robot, but unfortunately, the robot injected a high dose of Psych. Not long after, Pavani came and saw his brother lying in an overdose, and instantly the robot dog ambushed him at that moment. Elsewhere, the single Connor lives out his boring days. After his mother's death, he became a Psych addict. Plus, he also has frequent nightmares and make him can't sleeping properly. This time Connor is working as a janitor at a deserted sports arena. While working, he is visited by Davis, a detective who throws him in jail. This time he needs help to fight the corrupt Kingstone, and according to Davis, only Connor can do it. However, he flatly refuses and doesn't want to cooperate with any police. Not long after, a woman named Mina approached him. She was the person responsible for taking care of the sports arena. The old woman then asked Connor not to work so hard because the building was already empty of visitors. Afterward, she also gave him some food. On the other hand, Kingstone was worried because their robot dog had been badly damaged, and it seemed that all of this was because of Pavani's unknown power. Finally, Kingstone ordered his men to repair the robot while finding out the trouble of the damage. At noon, when Connor was taking out the trash, he saw that the lock on the warehouse had been destroyed. When he checked, he found Pavani hiding. However, it seems that Pavani is still traumatized and scared, especially since her brother has just died. Connor asked her to calm down and said that he wouldn't hurt her. After that, he took her inside the building and brought her together with Mina. Here, Pavani explained everything. That her brother had been killed by a robot police dog, and now she has to hide because she accidentally damaged the robot with her power. Not long after, the police came to arrest her. Seeing this, Mina decided to buy time and asked Connor to protect Pavani. In a different place, Kingstone met with Garrett. He told the gangster boss to finish off Pavani and Connor. That is because they can both expose the secret of his crimes. And as a loyal friend, of course, Garrett refused the request. At the same time, Connor and Pavani decided to take a short break while thinking of ways to get out of town. Then, while watching TV, Pavani saw the news of her brother's death, which was considered a psych overdose. Even though it is clear that the police robot dog deliberately injected the drug into her brother's body. Not long after, Pavani heard the sound of police movement that was heading towards her, even though the distance was very far away. Apparently, she does have the power of a transducer, which is the ability to hack all kinds of electronic devices, including drones, robot dogs, and cell phones. When Connor finds out about this, he immediately invites her to escape. Then, when he came out of the apartment door, Connor immediately brutalized and taken down the police robots. After grabbing them with electric power, Connor and Pavani escaped by riding the bus. Not knowing what else to do, Connor decided to ask Garrett for help. Later that night, he met Garrett at a restaurant, and without further ado, he said he needed help. He and Pavani wanted to escape out of town using new identities, but Garrett couldn't let Pavani go because her brother had messed up his transaction with the police. In addition, he also needed Pavani as a tool to threaten Kingstone. That way, he wouldn't have to give bribes anymore. And in return, he would protect Pavani as long as Pavani would erase the memory of her brother's death. Because if not, it was likely that his emotions would be uncontrollable. After hearing that, Connor had no other choice. Moreover, the police had also made him a fugitive again. So, inevitably, he had to follow Garrett's plan. Then he tried to persuade Pavani to want to erase the memory. Pavani initially refused, but Connor said that Garrett's plan was the only solution apart from fighting to escape Kingstone's pursuit. Hearing his words, Pavani finally agreed to do it. Not wanting to waste time, the three of them rushed off to meet a power that could erase memories. On the way, Garrett expressed his wish that Pavani could join the power community he led. That way, the association of people with extraordinary powers would no longer be underestimated by the police. He also said that his gang was making other alternative materials to make psych, so that he didn't need to use the power's spinal cord anymore. However, Pavani could only remain silent without responding to his invitation. A while later, they finally arrived at the house of an old woman who had a power child. Like what Garrett had explained, they were memory controllers. Long story short, the ritual begins, but as the ritual progressed, Connor just realized Garrett's original plan. He intends to erase all of Pavani's memories of Turak, not just his death. As a result, Connor immediately stopped the ritual. Afterward, he invited Pavani to go to see Mina at her house. The old woman then said that she would take them away. And because time was limited, they had to leave immediately before Garrett and Kingstone arrived. In the car, Connor apologized to Pavani for endangering her. At the same time, Kingstone's subordinate discovered the location of the two of them and informed his boss. And Kingstone told him to share the location with Garrett so that he could take care of the problem. It didn't take long. Kingstone sent several robots to watch from afar. Meanwhile, Garrett also could intercept Mina's car. Then with the help of his men, he was able to take control of the situation. Here, he intends to kill Pavani, because he gets pressure from Kingstone. So, inevitably, Garrett had to do it in order to protect all his men. However, Connor wouldn't leave it at that. After being persuaded by his best friend, Garrett abandoned his intention and chose to protect Pavani. But suddenly, they were attacked by robots from above. When they were overwhelmed, Garrett said that they had to work together in order to save themselves. But unfortunately, they couldn't counterattack, because Kingstone's robots shot continuously. Seeing that, Mina decided to sacrifice herself so that the others could survive. When Mina was dying, Kingstone came to her. He then promised to save her life if she wants to provide information about the place Connor is heading to. But Mina couldn't speak, until finally she died horribly. Connor and the others, on the other hand, hid in an empty orphanage. There, Garrett, who had been shot, asked his best friend to treat the wound. But Connor refused because he had worked with Kingstone. Mina was killed, and now Pavani is in even more danger. Even so, Pavani asked Connor to help Garrett. In situations like this, they really have to work together and protect each other. When he felt good, Garrett told him about the orphanage, which turned out to be his home. Since he was a child, he and his friends had to fight against discrimination from normal people. Because he had extraordinary powers, he was considered and labeled as a dangerous person. And what's worse, normal people always associate it with crime. But not everyone with superpowers is evil. When the night was late, Connor told Pavani that he had to move immediately, because he thinks it was the only option. However, Pavani didn't want to leave before taking her revenge on Kingstone. In addition, he also wanted to clear her brother's name, so that he wouldn't be considered a drug addict. The next morning, Davis went to the orphanage after being contacted by Connor. Here, he offers them his help to root out Kingstone and his men. The four then devised a plan to counterattack. Then, Pavani informed them that the police's robot dog had all the footage of Kingstone's crimes. So, if they want to destroy Kingstone, they have to spread the file. Hearing this information, Garrett proposed a crazy idea to steal Kingstone's robot dog. With Pavani's power, he would be able to hack into the recording data and transfer it to a computer. Connor initially disagreed because the plan was too dangerous, but everyone convinced him that by working together, this plan would definitely be a success. Without wasting any time, they went straight to Kingstone's house and pretended to be representatives of the Union. In addition, Connor and Garrett also told Kingstone's wife that they would support Kingstone's candidacy for mayor. Hearing this, Kingstone's wife immediately let them in. Not long after, Kingstone finally returned home, and of course he was very surprised when he saw Connor and Garrett, but because his wife was there, he was no choice to pretend to be good. Here, he didn't realize that the two of them were buying time. Elsewhere, Kingstone's men get a warning code from the robot dog. He tried to contact Kingstone to report the situation, but there was no response at all. At the same time, Pavani had sneaked into Kingstone's warehouse to transfer the recorded data from the robot dog. Before Kingstone realized it, Connor decided to go meet Pavani, while Garrett tried to hold Kingstone back. Until finally, the two of them came to a power struggle, and it turns out that Kingstone has the same knowledge as Garrett. After that, Garrett left because he had managed to buy time. Meanwhile, Kingstone rushed to his warehouse and was surprised, because the robot dog has been stolen by them. He immediately contacted his team to track down Connor and friends. Fortunately, the three of them could escape and headed to Garrett's headquarters. In this place, they began transferring data from the robot to his computer. Upon arrival at the headquarters, Garrett lied again to the two of them. Apparently, he doesn't plan to spread the contents of the recording to the public, and instead he will use it for the benefit of his gang. Hearing this, Connor and Pavani were furious and felt betrayed, but actually, Garrett didn't mean any harm. He just wanted to protect his gang from the corrupt police. Before leaving, he apologized to Connor and Pavani and told his men to look after them. Meanwhile, Kingstone and his men had arrived in front of his headquarters. Garrett then met them with a broken robot dog, and afterward he forced Kingstone to make a new deal. He forbids the police to interfere with his business and people around him, and if his offer is rejected, then he will spread the footage. But unfortunately, Kingstone stabbed him very brutally. Kingstone also said that he wasn't an ordinary policeman, and whatever happens, he will never be punished, because everyone in the police, prosecutor's office, and the judiciary has been bribed. Even so, he still has to find the stolen files, so that his reputation is not bad in front of the public. Therefore, he ordered his troops to search Garrett's headquarters and look for the files he had stolen. On the other hand, Connor persuaded Garrett's men to cooperate with him. Moreover, their boss was powerless before Kingstone. In addition, he also said that this moment was an opportunity for the power to expose the crimes committed by the police against their people. Hearing that, their hearts finally began to open and wanted to cooperate. And without wasting any more time, they immediately beat all the police who were there. In the midst of the struggle, Connor and Pavani left with the recording files. Here, they intend to meet the reporter outside the building to distribute the footage. But unfortunately, their movements were noticed by the other robots, and inevitably, they had to be brutalized on the spot. After controlling the robot dog with his power, Pavani suffered injuries on her body. Feeling worried, Connor asked her to recover her wounds first, but Pavani was eager to destroy Kingstone's life. Then as they exited the building, one of the robots was ordered to attack. Luckily, Garrett could hold him back. In addition, Davis also arrived in time to stop the corrupt police. On the other hand, Connor asked the reporter who was there to give him his camera. Then after that, Pavani transferred all the hacked data so that the reporter could spread Kingstone's crimes. Because the two of them, Kingstone was finally arrested and will soon be tried and imprisoned. 3 months later, Connor returned to work as a janitor, and this time he wants to continue Mina's dream of managing her building well. In addition, he is also helped by Pavani, whom he already considers his own sister. At the end of the story, Kingstone was fired from his position as a police officer. He wasn't sentenced to death, but was sentenced to prison. And in the end, he was convicted of corruption and taking bribes from gangsters. With his crime revealed, the movie ended.